Chapter 3 The Riddles of Revelation. In the analysis which will be given in the next chapter, it will be shown that the Apocalypse is a coherent whole, symmetrical, and having every detail fitted into its appropriate place with studied care. In its orderly arrangement and concise statement, the book is a model of precise literary workmanship. But it contains a series of elaborate puzzles, some of which are based upon the numerical values of certain Greek words, thereby serving to verify the correct interpretation of the more important symbols. And as the detailed explanation of these in the analysis would interrupt the interpretation of the book as a whole, for the sake of clearness, the solution of these puzzles will here be given in advance. In the Apocalypse, 4 animal symbols, or beasts, theria, are conspicuous dramatis personae. Number 1, a lamb, having seen 7 horns and 7 eyes, and who is identified as Jesus, who becomes, quote, the conqueror. 2, a beast resembling a leopard, with a bear's feet and a lion's mouth, and having 7 heads and 10 horns. 3, a red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and who is, quote, the devil and Satan. And 4, a beast having 2 horns, like a lamb but speaking like a dragon, and who is called the pseudo-seer, or false teacher, pseudo-prophetes. Of these 4, the leopard is particularly referred to as, quote, the beast, and concerning him the apocalyptist says, quote, here is cleverness, Sophia. He who has the nous, let him count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. The quote, cleverness of this puzzle lies in its very simplicity, for the words, quote, the nous, or nous, the familiar term in Greek philosophy for the higher mind, or man, naturally suggests the correct answer, the phren, or phren, the cognate term for the lower mind, or man. As numbers are expressed in Greek by the letters of the alphabet and not by arithmetical figures, the number of a name is simply the sum of the numerical values of the letters composing it. Thus, the numerical value of Hephren is 666. If this were the whole of the puzzle, it would be almost puerile, but it is, in fact, only a part of, and the clue to, an elaborate puzzle, which in its entirety is remarkably ingenious. It will be noticed that the beast, the phrenic mind, is the faculty ruling over one of the 4 somatic divisions, from which the natural inference is drawn that 3 other beasts likewise are the regents of the 3 other somatic divisions. The lamb, Jesus, would therefore stand for the highest of these, the nous. Now, the word Jesus gives a sum 888. The red dragon, quote, the archaic serpent, who is the devil and Satan, fits neatly into place as the ruler of the third somatic division, epithumia, which word yields the number 555. The fourth beast, the quote, false prophet, takes his place in the fourth division as the generative principle, akrasia, quote, sensuality, the number of his name being 333. Plato applies this principle to the word akolasia, which has the same meaning and the same numerical value. Placing these four names with their numbers in the form of a diagram of the four somatic divisions, it becomes apparent that the puzzle is still only partly solved, for evidently a complete series of numbers is intended. A space is left where the diagram, to fill out the meaning, requires the cross and another space for the quote, good serpent, the regenerative force, the quote, bad serpent, the devil, the lust for life which leads to generation, being already included. The number of the cross, stauros, is 777. The letters sigma, tau, being taken, of course, as zeta equaling 6. The spiraling electrical force, quote, the coil of the serpent, is the sperema, which word gives the number 444. Now, the action of this force upon the brain, where its triple current forms the cross, gives the noetic perception, direct cognition, the episteme, or highest degree of knowledge, so beautifully defined by Plato, and to express this in the diagram, it becomes necessary to insert the word epistemon, the philosophic and esoteric equivalent for the exoteric word Christos. Its numerical value is 999. Further, he who has attained to this higher knowledge forthwith becomes the conqueror, and as, quote, the conqueror, is the hero, so to say, of the apocalyptic drama. His name must be placed at the head of the list as Ho Nikon, with its number 1000. The diagram thus completed makes clear the basic teaching of the apocalypse, which treats of the sperema and its energizing through the vital centers as the conqueror gains mastery over them and builds up for himself, out of that primordial substance, his immortal vehicle, the monogenetic or solar body. This deathless solar vesture is symbolized as a city which comes down out of the sky, enveloped in the radiance, dotcha, of the gods, and it is portrayed with poetic imagery of exquisite beauty. The description, with its wealth of detail, should be enough to show very clearly what the city really is, but Johannes has supplied conclusive proof of the true meaning by inserting in the description a puzzle which reads as follows, quote, the divinity who was talking with me had for a measure a golden reed to measure the city the gateways, and its wall. The city lies 4 square, and its length is as great as the width. He measured the city with the reed by stadia, 12,000. Its length, width, and height are equal, and he measured its wall, 144 cubits, including the measure of a man, that is, of a divinity. As the expression, quote, by stadia, epistadion, shows that the measurement should not be taken in stadia, it naturally follows that it should be reduced to miles. Therefore, dividing 12,000 by 7.5, the number of stadia, to the Jewish mile, the quotient is 1600, and this is the numerical value of the words tosoma helikon, quote, the solar body. In the authorized version, the preposition epi, quote, by, is not translated, being omitted as redundant, which merely shows the untrustworthiness of an empirical translation. That version also reads, quote, 144 cubits, according to the measure of a man, that is, of an angel. The inserted words making the passage meaningless. The, quote, wall of the solar body is its aura, or, quote, radiance, hedocha. But the letters of that name amount to only 143. As a puzzle, that number would be too transparent, nor would it harmonize with the other numbers given in relation to the city as the 12,000 stadia, 12 gateways, 12 foundations, etc., all which have a real or an apparent reference to the zodiac. Therefore, Johannes increased it to 144, the square of 12, by adding another alpha, which he calls, quote, the measure of a man, that is, of a divinity. In the formula, quote, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last. Alpha is the symbol of the divine man, or divinity, before his fall into matter, and Omega is the symbol of the perfected man, who has passed through the cycle of reincarnation and regained the spiritual consciousness. The city is described as having the form of a cube. To solve this element of the puzzle, it is only necessary to unfold the cube, thereby disclosing a cross, which represents the human form, a man with outstretched arms. Although Johannes speaks of measuring, quote, the city, its gateways, and its wall, he does not give the measure of the gateways, for the very obvious reason that is wholly unnecessary, since the word, quote, gateway, pylon, from pyle, quote, an orifice, sufficiently indicates their nature. They are the 12 orifices of the body. In the Upanishads, the human body is often called poetically the 12-gate city of God's abode.